Hello, YouTube. It's been quite a while. I've been bumming around with a lot of crap decks, and I found one that I really kind of enjoy and having a lot of fun with at locals and playtesting. It is Magistus. For those of you who don't know, it is a spellcaster deck that came out in Genesis Impact. It's the one nobody cares about, but it has some flavor, it has some fun, and with the new support that came out in the most recent sets, it actually has some sort of win condition. Becomes more of a kind of like Floodgate deck, so we'll go ahead and go over the profile and explain how it all works. We will start with 3 copies of Endymion, the Magistus of Mastery. This is one of the most important cards of the deck, surprising for its rarity. Basically, it gets the engine going. Once per turn, you can target a Magistus card you control, including itself, and equip a Magistus monster from the extra deck to that monster. This is the entire gimmick of the deck. You equip the extra deck monsters from the extra deck to the monsters, and then they provide additional bonus effects depending on which monster you equip. So the goal is to equip as many as possible and cycle through them in the graveyard to put up floodgates, kind of battle tricks, and other such. So this is one of the main ways you're going to do that, and it's one of your best normal summons. Its second effect is you can target a face-up spell on your side of the field, send it to the graveyard, and then if you do, you draw a card and put one back. So there's no card economy here, you just break even. But if you have a extra deck monster equipped and you're done using its effects, you can cycle it for a more useful card, dig for a hand trap, a back row, extender, so on and so forth. So the most important card of the deck. Onto one of the better cards, not second best, but this is Crowley, the Magistus of Grimoires. This is your main extender. It special summons itself by sending one spellcaster from your hand or face up on the field to the graveyard. And then you could change its attribute or any Magistus... I believe it's just itself. Oh no, this card, yeah, sorry. So this card becomes any attribute. This used to be important in an older build where you ran Bahamut Shark and Totally Awesome. You would use Mastery and Crowley to go into Bahamut Shark before you do other combos, and then you would make Totally Awesome. Not as important anymore, but if you were to use it as generic spellcaster support, that can come in handy. But we use it as mainly just for the extender effect, and it has a graveyard effect that you can banish it from the graveyard to target one Magistus monster you control, and you equip it with the Magistus extra deck monster from your graveyard. So this lets you cycle those that you already went through and allows you to continue to get those continuous effects once you're done using whatever benefits you had from them earlier, once you link, synchro, so on. Definitely really good card. On to the most important card of the deck for its new strategy. This is Aurora, the Magistus of Flame. So this is a level 4 tuner, which is awesome. And it has a similar effect to Mastery, where you can target a Magistus monster you control, equip it with a monster from the extra deck. Magistus monster from the extra deck. But the gimmick of this one is that if he himself is equipped with the Magistus card, you can then target a monster in the graveyard, level 4 spellcaster in the graveyard, or one from their hand, and special summon that monster. So this allows for easy Synchro 8s, helps you get to your boss monster, gives you extra bodies on board. It does negate the monster that you summon, but that's okay because you usually end up for materials regardless. So, again, just one of your better normal summons, and it facilitates the win condition. On to Riliona. If I said that wrong, forgive me. So Riliona is decent. She's not the greatest, honestly, even though she's a rota for your spells. But you gotta run her because she does have some recursion ability. So when this card is normal special summon, you can either A, add a Magistus spell trap from your deck to your hand, or B, return a banished Magistus spellcaster from your banished pile to the graveyard. This is important to cycle things like Crowley and herself, actually, because she does banish herself for cost for another effect. Similar to Crowley, you can banish her from the graveyard, target a Magistus you control, and then equip it with the Magistus monster from the graveyard that's not a level 4. So again, reusing those extra deck monsters that you equip. We'll get to that strategy in just a second. Let's continue on with some extenders and such. So 1 copy of Perform H Trick Clown. It's a level 4 spellcaster. You can special summon it easily, and it gives you another body on board when it goes to the graveyard. So more extenders, more bodies to help you make your extra deck plays. Some spiciness. I did a lot of searching on Neuron to figure out what level 4 spellcasters would be really good. And besides, you know, things like Ecclesia, because I didn't want to play a mishmash of this and, what's it called, Invoked or Dogmatica. I wanted to run a more pure build, so I just tried to find the best generic level 4 spellcasters to get advantage. And Witch of the Black Forest is definitely one of them. So you can special summon it out with a couple of different ways. You can use Magicians of Flame. You can use their the special, what's it called, the spell card from the deck. But basically, Witch lets you, 1, extend with the effects, and then 2, you get to chain block and search for a hand trap, specifically Effect Veiler. So really cool that you have a way to prevent your opponent from interacting with you as far as chain blocking. And getting resources for later is important in this deck, because if there's one thing this deck doesn't do well, it's resources. Everything's a 1-for-1 trade. That's why this deck was the least popular of all the decks in Genesis Impact. It's fair. Nobody likes fair decks. But we have to compensate as best as we can. And instead of doing generic engines, I'm going with something a little more flavorful. That's it for the spellcasters. The obligatory 3 Ash Blossom. Just a really good hand trap. Nothing to say there. 3 copies of Effect Veiler. Effect Veiler is really good in this deck. 1, it's a spellcaster. 2, it's a tuner. And more importantly, if you know the combo, link your Magicians of Flame and another monster into Needle Fiber, bring out Effect Veiler, go into Selene, access code. I'm sure you've all seen it before. Let's go on to the spells. We have 3 copies of Trimagistus. So this is one of your better spells, maybe even the best one. So each time a Magicians monster equipped with a Magicians card would be destroyed by battle, it is not destroyed. So some battle protection, nothing exciting. But we use it for the other effects mainly, which is once per turn you can activate one of these effects. Either A, special summon a level 4 spellcaster from your hand. It could be any level 4 spellcaster. Does not have to be a Magicians, which is awesome. And then there's a second effect that if you decide to send this card from the field to the graveyard, you can special summon as many Magicians monsters of different names from your hand. So if you draw this, or you get into it, and then you got a hand of monsters, no problem. You can summon them all out and start going off with your combos. So definitely the most important spell of the deck. For consistency, we have a non-Magicians card. 3 copies of Spell Power Mastery. Endymion is an Endymion card, so lore. You could use this to search your best normal summon in the deck, and then get some recurability. 3 copies is fantastic. You just want to see that card as many times as possible so you can start your combos. It's just super important to have as much consistency as possible in this deck, because you want to have a lot of monsters to just throw out there, so kind of mandatory to run that 3. 2 copies of Magicians Vitra. If I say anything wrong, my apologies. You can target a level 4 or lower Magicians monster in your graveyard, special summon it. So Monster Reborn essentially for most of your deck. And then if a Magicians card in your spell and trap zone would be destroyed by opponent's card effect, you can banish this card instead. So if your opponent is running back row hate to stop you from your main game plan, you have some sort of protection with it along with an extender. Good at 2. Don't run 3, it's too bricky. And then some one-ofs. We have Magicians Theurgy. This is an interesting card. It's the least useful of them all, but it does have applications in like very strange scenarios. And since it's searchable with Relone, whatever her name is, Vera, you know, it's worth running the one-of. So this one targets a Magicians monster you control, and you equip it with a Magicians monster from your extra deck. That's it. That's all you use it for. But it does have another effect where you can equip any monster from your extra deck to a Magicians, but you have to have one of each Synchro, Link, Fusion, and Xyz in the graveyard. You're not going to go through that hoop, and the payoff is just not there. 1 copy of our other searchable, Magicians Invocation. This lets you fusion summon any fusion monster by using Magicians cards you control from the hand or field. You could also use spells and traps that you control for the fusion summon. So what this means is that once you're done using the effects of the extra deck monsters equipped, you can then sack them for materials for a fusion summon. We only have one target for that in this deck profile, but it's definitely a great searchable one-of against certain matchups. Onto some generic cards. Copy of Monster Reborn. Again, we love extenders. We want to make sure we have as many level 4s on the field as possible for recursion. And you could also bring back some of your other monsters. Copy of Foolish Burial. Mainly use this to send Trick Clown, but you could also send Crowley or Renoa to equip from the extra deck if you really need it in a pinch. And a copy of Call by the Grave, because hand traps do kind of hurt. Finally, I was messing around with this at the locals, and I found myself really needing it. I had it side decked, but I think main decking it was more important after a little bit more testing. 2 copies of Caustic Cyclone. This deck has no way to deal with back row in any way, shape, or form. You do have the XZs equipped, but it's not a quick effect. It's slow. You have to do a 1-for-1 trade. So I think having back row removal is mandatory in this deck. You have to have it. If your opponent plays Mystic Mind, it's over. You're done. Pack it up. Finally, some traps. 2 copies of Infinite Impermanence. I wanted to have this build have some more go second cards. The deck struggles to do anything going second because if your opponent's established, your monsters are quite fragile. And with the meta of all this generic popping with DPE, the Sword Soul having their back row card, what is it called? Blackout. You need ways to stop your opponent from playing as much as you wanting to play. So I foregoed a bunch of other different tech cards and consistency, like draws and dualities and prosperities. I got rid of them all and decided to just put a couple more going second cards. It really does help you for when you're going second, unfortunately. And then finally, to help you protect your monsters a little bit from real threats, we have 2 copies of Solemn Strike. Great card in general, deals with a lot of the meta. Really good protection for your boss monster because he does have one small weakness. So we just want to make sure we have an all-out kind of blanket protection. Onto the extra deck and the main gimmick. So we run 3 copies of Artemis. So this card has an effect. Would you believe it? She has an effect. It's not just link material climbing for Alistair. So you can only link summon her once per turn. And when she's on the field, if you were to normal or special summon a Magistus monster, you could equip her to that monster. Now this is important because here's the effect. You ready, boys? You could then Rhoda search for any Magistus monster from your deck. So when she's equipped, you search, and then you can do away with her from link climbing or using your other effects to get more advantage. 3 is mandatory. You want to be able to get those spellcasters in your hand for upcoming turns. You also want to make sure you have extra copies in the graveyard in case you have to do some shenanigans on turn 2 to re-equip. So, gotta run her at 3. Onto one of our extenders. So, this is Witch of the Wardrobe, or whatever, Magistus Witch Wardrobe. She is one of your other extenders. Takes 2 level 4 spellcasters with different attributes. And you could detach a material from her to special summon any Magistus from the deck. However, you are locked to Magistus special summons from the extra deck. But that monster's effects are not negated, which is the greatest part. So, you can continue to combo off to an extent. She won't hinder you. She will always be a guaranteed plus or boss monster. Most of the time, you would end up using her effect to special summon the Magistus of Flame. Magistus of Flame will then equip, and then you'll be able to special summon from the graveyard the material you sent with Witch Wardrobe, and then you can make your boss monster. So this guarantees that you get your setup, assuming your opponent gets away, doesn't interrupt you in any way, shape, or form. She does have a equip effect. If she's equipped to a Magistus monster, you can target one effect monster your opponent controls and then negate that effect for the turn. This should have been a quick effect. It really should have been. That's why this deck kind of relies on its floodgate mechanic, which we'll get to shortly. It's just unfortunate that everything is just fair. So it is what it is. And now for your win condition. 2 copies of the new Synchro Zorora. I forget his name. Keflargin Calamity. Sure, whatever. This is your boss monster. This is your win condition. So when he's synchro summoned, you can equip a Magistus monster from your extra deck directly to him. This is important because For every Magistus extra deck monster that's equipped to your Magistus monsters, your opponent cannot activate the effects of those corresponding monsters. So, he will allow you to equip to himself, and then you'll use the graveyard effects of Crowley as well as Vera to equip another monster to him, and now you'll be able to lock out 2 different type of extra deck effects from your opponent. So the idea is you put this guy on the board, you equip as whatever your opponent is playing to him, and now you've locked them out of their effects, stunning them almost completely. He doesn't have any protection, only from battle from the continuous spell, so you have some leeway. And there is a monster that you can equip to him to help him kind of live a little longer and give him some sort of protection. He should have had protection himself, but, you know, fair Yu-Gi-Oh! Again. He does have another effect that if he's in the graveyard, you can send a face-up spell you control. I believe it has to be a Magistus card specifically. Yep, 1 Magistus card. And then you can special summon him back from the graveyard. So he does recur himself, but he does not re-equip once he recurs himself. So he's just going to be a 2900 body, nothing more. You'd have to use your other effects to re-equip to him. Other than that, that's your win condition. This is what they've become, a kind of floodgate type of deck. We have 1 copy of, I'm not even going to bother pronouncing the first name. It's the Magistus Spell Spirit. So this fusion is actually nuts. This is my favorite of the extra deck monsters. So you can fusion this with the Invocation card. And while it's summoned on the board, if your opponent activates, if your opponent has a monster, you can quick effect during the main phase, target that monster, equip this to that monster, and then you take control of it. So it's a snatch and steal quick effect. That is super good, especially in certain matchups where you have to deal with a big threat for Zora of Calamities. You want to be able to have that threat neutralized, so this lets you straight up take it. The monster that you take also gains 1000 attack and defense, so if your opponent thinks they could just run over it or get it back that way, it's going to be harder for them to do it. Not only, it is a little fair, the effects are negated on that monster, it is what it is. But, you know, most of the time you're not going to use that effect because it's not going to benefit you, so you just want to take it, prevent them from having it, and then swing back. If it's equipped to your Magistus monster, it does not negate the effects, because it's only for your opponent's monster when you steal it. So you can give it to the boss monster, and then it'll be 3900, and that's really difficult to get over. 1 copy of Glass Goddess. This is definitely the weakest of the equips, but we have to run it because we need Xyz as a target for the Floodgate. So it's 2 level 4 spellcasters, and while this card is equipped, that monster can make 2 attacks. So you can equip it to your boss monster to kind of close out the game, 2900 swing twice. It has to attack monsters, unfortunately. Again, fair Yu-Gi-Oh! Because Konami hates making good archetypes. But it can attack twice on monsters, helping you close out the gap. And then it has a Spell Trap Destruction effect, where if you have this equipped to a Magistus monster, you can target 1 card you control, 1 face-up one spell trap your opponent controls, and destroy them. Again, it's fair. It's a 1-for-1 trade. You can recur the graveyard, the extra deck monsters from your graveyard with the effects, but should have been a quick effect, honestly. Whatever. Take what we can get. And then finally, the last of the Magistus extra deck monsters, 2 copies of Varam. So this is a really cool one. It's a Synchro 8 itself, so you can make this with Magistus Aflame and a monster you special summon. When it's destroyed by battle or card effect, it can destroy all cards your opponent controls. Really cool, honestly. Like a reverse nuke, that's awesome. But it's not that good in that sense. It is an option. It can come up. While it's equipped to a Magistus monster, though, that monster can't be destroyed by battle. By spell or trap effects. So it gives, again, your boss monster different types of protection against spell or trap cards. And it does give battle protection in a sense, because any monster that battles the equipped monster with this then gets to destroy that monster at the start of the damage step. So if they try to run over your Zora, they can't, because it's going to get destroyed at the start of the damage step. So protection from battle, protection from spell trap removal. It's as good as it's going to get when it comes to keeping your board alive. And now onto some generic pieces. Nothing really special to talk about here. 1 copy of Borreload Savage Dragon. If your hand is really good enough and you don't lock yourself out of Magistus, you can go ahead and make this as well. So you'll have a negate on board, as well as your boss monsters. It helps out a lot. Just the generic good stuff. And then finally, we talked about this earlier. 1 Halki Fibrax. 1 Celine, 1 Access Code Talker. If you don't know the combo, go YouTube it. But this is basically just to close out the game, help you finish up the board, get rid of any threats that are final. It's as good as you can get in this deck, honestly. But that's pretty much it. This deck is a lot of fun. It's very gimmicky. Combos are pretty... There's not really a combo video because you kind of have a solid game plan. The objective is to go as follows. You basically want to normal summon this, and then with whatever you want to use this effect, equip Artemis. I'm sorry, yeah, equip Artemis. You're going to then search with Artemis. Search for an extender if you don't have it. If you do have it, search for either Zora or Vera. In this case, we could search for Crowley. Crowley will use this effect. Send another Spellcaster from your hand to special summon it. You'll then XYZ, which will send us to the grave. You'll XY summon Madam. Wherever she is, there she is. You'll detach Crowley specifically because you want to use the graveyard effect. And that'll let you special summon Flame. Flame could then use this effect to equip another extra deck piece to a monster. And in this case, you want to do itself. So you would, depending on your matchup, you would use the corresponding monster. Sword Soul is really popular right now, so the ideal would be to equip Varam. And then you use the other effect since it's equipped with the Magistus card. You can then special summon the Crowley back. Now you Synchro for 8. Make your boss monster Zora. Zora will use its effects. Again, depending on what you're playing against, equip the appropriate monster. Most of the time, it's important to equip either the Spell Spirit to give it an attack boost, or you can do another Artemis. So, because it's already in the grave, the other Artemis, you want to kind of keep it there because you want to bring back the Verum. And the way you bring back one of these two is you would just banish the Crowley and then equip whatever's left to whichever Magistus monster, either one of these. Sometimes you want to equip the Artemis to the Witch Wardrobe, because if your opponent finds a way to out Zora, then you're going to lose all your back row materials. Equipping it to Madam with her 2800 defense kind of guarantees it lives a turn, provided you stop the rest of your opponent's plays. And then next turn, you can use the effect of Artemis once more and just start going off again. So that's pretty much it. And then, you know, depending on your hand, you'll make more bodies or you'll put the Boardload Savage on the board. This is your game plan. Zorora, 2 to 3 monsters equipped, and then Madam in defense mode. Anything else is just going to be hand traps. It's going to be, you know, Solemn Strike, extenders. But it's pretty potent. If you can lock out 2 different types or 3 different type of extra deck monsters from your opponent, they're not playing the game. They're not going to be able to run over, you know, no one's running a main deck 3000 attack monster to knock over Zorora. And they're sure as hell not, even if they could, they have to deal with the fact that you may have Verum equipped to it, and then it's going to just get destroyed. So it's really hard to deal with against this very extra deck focused meta. I suggest trying it online if you want to give it a go. The deck's not that expensive. Artemis is the most expensive card because everyone's running her for Invoke, but you know, the deck has some fun applications, and I really did enjoy playing it at locals. I enjoy testing it at home. It's just fun and flavorful. So I hope you guys enjoyed. If you have any questions, comments, complaints, whatever, leave it down below in the comments. And like and subscribe as always. I'll see you guys later.